Hi, everybody. This is Michelle Cook Hall, and you have tuned in to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast. Listen, today we're going to just get right on into it. I'm going to share with you some perspective on what is going on right now. In order for me to do that and share with you how and why I have this perspective, let me explain to you, for those who do not know me or have not heard any of my other podcasts, let me tell you my qualifications so you can understand where I'm coming from today as we discuss exactly what's going on in our society and in our world today. My name is Michelle Cook Hall. I am an ordained minister. I have been married for 23 years. I have 3 children. My oldest child is 22. My middle child is 18. My youngest child is 14. My 2 oldest children are African American males. I am an African American female, and I am raising an African American female as well. My whole entire life, I have experienced some form of racism. I have witnessed it. I have been in the middle of it, and so I do understand what we as a society is now putting a huge spotlight on. Let me share with you that as a mother, my heart broke to see an adult African American male cry out for his mother. Every day that my children, my sons, go out, I pray. I pray. I have taught them all that I can. Most importantly, I've taught them how to pray for themselves and cover themselves as they leave my house. I ask my son, who is an adult, to call me every day that he leaves from work so that I know when he's getting in the car, so that I can make sure I'm timing when he's coming home. If he makes stops and do anything else, he just tells me ahead of time so that I don't worry. This has been my life. I will tell you the very, very first time that I, as a child, experienced a form of racism. The very first time. I was raised in a community where the people around me looked like me. But I was aware of others that did not look like me. But I was raised to love, regardless of what you look like. I didn't think anything was different besides the fact that you might have lived in a different location, going to a different school, and just probably, visually look different than I. But that was the only thing that I saw. I never was taught that anyone was better or less than me based upon their appearance. So I never thought that. As a young girl, I remember going to the store with my mother. My mother allowed me to walk a little bit from her to look at books. I love books. And she would allow me to purchase one whenever we went out to this particular store. And I remember walking towards the books, and there was an older gentleman who was Caucasian, and he was an elderly man. And remember, I was probably 6, 7 years old, 7, and I still remember this so vividly. And 7 is probably a stretch, but I can remember to this day, that day. When I came in his area, he immediately screamed and hollered and yelled at me and told me to get away from him, do not touch him. He made such a scene. He screamed at me. He looked at me with hate. He looked at me with disgust. It made me feel dirty. It made me feel like I was not human. In his eyes, he looked at me as if I was nobody. I knew at that point what racism was. No one had to tell me. My mother did not have to say, oh, baby, don't worry about him. He's just racist. She didn't have to share any of that, even though she assured me and she talked to me. But she didn't have to, because I already knew by the way he looked at me that there was pure hate in his eyes for someone he didn't even know. I was a child. I was just a baby. And he spitted out so much hate, so much venom towards me, and it impacted me. After that point, I started to notice even more things. Growing up, we would go on family vacations, and we would just have fun. We stayed with ourselves, amongst ourselves, and just enjoy each other's company. But when we would go into a community pool on a vacation, I would notice that some people would get up out of that pool. And I mean, it was obvious. Somebody might say, well, how do you know? They could just been done. No, it was really obvious. The looks, the stares, the mumbles. I mean, it was really obvious why they were getting out of the pool. These were things that I was raised watching, seeing, and experiencing. But even then, I tried so hard to make sure that I did not do the same. I did not reciprocate that hate, that misconception, that prejudgment based upon what someone looked like. I remember growing up, we moved into a community that was a melting pot. It had every nationality, and I enjoyed that because it gave me a chance to see that everybody wasn't not necessarily like that. But then the older I got in this community, times start changing again, and then you start seeing. I was raised up in a time where you heard about skinheads, and these were individuals who were all black. They wore combat boots. They skinned their heads. And they practiced, white supremacy, and they were better. And these were individuals. What was really amazing to me is that some of the individuals that participated in this were individuals that I went to school with in grade school. These were individuals that I just saw change, all of a sudden. It became something that I just could not wrap my head around. And so I was, coming up at a time where we were always, threats of race wars and fights and, threats of fights based upon, the race. And it was just a constant tension at that time. So then I became, a wife and a mother. And I remember several incidents in which my husband had been pulled over. And my husband had been racially profiled, and my husband had been had a gun placed in his face. And watching my son one time cry in the backseat of the car, and my husband being detained as if he was a criminal, and my husband hadn't done anything. The police officers later on, came and gave us some story which was not truthful or relevant or anything, but just something to try to justify the chaotic scene of pulling my husband out of the car, shining lights in his face, and putting a gun on him in front of my son. This is my reality. This is my son's reality. This was my husband's reality. This is what we have seen our entire lives. Being afraid of going through certain areas because you know that you will be pulled over. You knew that you were going to be targeted because you were African American. There were areas that I really wanted to move to, and I knew the stories of crosses being burned in front of houses. I knew there were certain areas that we were just not welcome. I just knew that. And this is not gossip. This is just something that This is something that you knew. You knew that there were certain areas you went into. People would stare at you because they felt like you did not belong. And this is America. Come on. This is America. This has been my reality. has been something that I've seen my entire life. Watching the news and seeing it go to another level of killing. And what's frightening is that if this was a different time, and when I was growing up and they didn't have cameras on phones, if this was a different time, then this would be something that will be hidden. This would be something that would have been just pushed aside. This would be just another man who they would have made some absurd story about, making it seem as if it was something that he did. But because we are in a society now where we have technology and we are able to record on the spot and even do it live, what's going on, we all get to see. And what is even more painful, which once again makes you feel like dirt, which once again makes you feel like your life is not valuable in the eyes of other people, is when you can visibly see yourself that was murder, and they still trying to find a way to make it seem as if it was not, to try to make charges against the accused that does not equate the crime. That's hurtful. It hurts us. And the reality of it is that if you think that it doesn't affect you because your skin color is not the same, then you are in denial. You are in denial. It affects one, it affects us all. It affects us all. And so today, I just wanted to bring some light on this platform that I have in regards to the injustice that I've experienced, my family has experienced over and over and over again. And it's not right. It's not fair. It's not democracy. Do you hear me? This is not democracy. This is not humane. This is not a community act at all. It is not. It is not at all okay. It's not acceptable. And for those who are taking the approach of protesting in a positive and impactful way, I salute you. Those who are preparing themselves to make changes in their cities, in their states, that will bring reform, because I'm going to say this word to you and I want you to hear me very clearly. You get things changed in our legislative system. You get things changed when you start changing the policies and the procedures, making people accountable for the things that they do. Because if proper procedures and policies were in place and enforced, and you have to have people in place to enforce that, okay? When you have that enforced, then the individual who committed this heinous crime would not have even been on that scene, because he had such a record of abuse of power that he would not have even been there. So we have to make sure that after we have protested and once we have cried and screamed and hollered, that we go to the tables that make the change. We have to make sure that once we have made an uproar and we showed our rage and we showed our disdain of what's going on, and that we would not accept this, we would not tolerate this, we're not going to stand for this. Once we have done all of that, we have to make sure that something comes from this besides damaged property. We have to make sure that something comes about from this besides just noise. We have to make sure that we are making an impact. And how we make an impact with your voice It's assuring that you are demanding change. That you are demanding change. Those who are there, those who are in power, those who are in leadership in that area and other areas of our judicial system, our law enforcement branch, those individuals must be held accountable. Those individuals must make the change. It is not acceptable. It is not okay. And we have made that very clear. I mean, you have to be a very sick individual living in your little cubby hole to not know that this is sick. This is absolutely sick what we all have witnessed. This is sick what we have witnessed. It's hurtful. It breaks my heart as a mother. It breaks my heart as a woman. It breaks my heart as an African American to see what I have seen. And not just with him, but all the other individuals who have come up missing, those individuals who were pulled over and just shot and was lied on, saying that they had something that they didn't. But understand that this has been happening for years. This is nothing that is brand new. We have seen these stories, we have heard these stories, and now we have been able to watch these stories in our own homes now. We have been, for me personally, an African American community, we have seen this over and over and over and over and over again. But what did I tell you all? Those who have been following this podcast and been watching me cover COVID-19, I kept emphasizing to you guys that this was the perfect ingredients for a perfect storm, because something was coming, something was brewing, something was getting ready to erupt into a perfect storm. And so it just blew my mind to see that I have been saying this for like 2 months. Perfect ingredients for a perfect storm, and here we are erupting into a perfect storm. Because people have been out of work, people have been stuck in the house, people have been, trying to purchase their basic essentials, trying to make the best out of a quarantine for 2 months. My daughter was counting off the days. She's like, Mom, we've been in 72 days and 73 days. She just counted off. And then all of a sudden, when you think that maybe you get a little leeway, you're about to get out, and we about to be able to, get out of quarantine. And then we get to see with our own eyes that even as a community, when we were supposed to be coming together and supporting one another during this horrible pandemic, somebody comes and does something like this. I mean, there is no justification of what we all saw. It was cruel, but it has been done before. And if individuals feel and know that this has been done before and we have gotten away with it, they will continue. They will continue. That is just common sense. If there is no accountability, we can't change the hearts of man. Come on, we can't change the hearts of man, but we can make it make them accountable for what they do. And then they'll understand, the ones behind them, they will understand that, look, if you do this and this and this is going to happen. I'm not going to just lose my job. I'm going to lose my freedom. I'm going to lose my family. And I might lose my life. They have to understand there's accountability to what I am doing. This is just across the board. These individuals was holding a position of power to protect, power to execute the law, to enforce the law, not execute a man. Come on, to enforce the law. There was nothing legal about what we saw there or any of the other cases that we have been witnessing over years. There was nothing illegal about it, but we watched it and we've all said this is wrong. And we all were upset when we see individuals walk away or get what I call a slap on the wrist for killing, murdering somebody. It doesn't matter to me that you are a police officer or holding any type of position, and happen to murder somebody doing it. The fact that you murder somebody should be the issue. It should be the fact that, well, let's just fire them because they're law enforcers. No. We're not gonna even give a person a pass. We don't give you a pass for being a murderer, for being a person who was evil enough to take your knee and literally kill someone. And the fact, let me be real, let me be honest. The fact that you have other individuals who are in positions of power, positions of leadership in this great country of ours, that would agree with what was done, that would say very ignorant things such as, if you can say that you can't breathe, then you can breathe. Where Eric Gardner said he couldn't breathe and he died as well. These are ignorant statements coming from ignorant people, and they must all be held accountable. How do we do that? Once again, we have to make changes that will be enforced. I don't want to see a change on a piece of paper that is not enforced. So we have to make sure that we're putting in place the necessary individuals, group, staff, whatever, to ensure that these new policies and procedures will be enforced. We cannot protect individuals who are killing our citizens. Come on. We cannot protect individuals who are literally stripping away the rights of our citizens. We are a democratic country. We believe in our citizens being treated equally and fairly. We all have a right, inalienable rights, right? So you cannot allow individuals to snatch that away from a person based upon their skin color. So it has to be a standard. The standard has to be enforced, and the standard has to be across the board. It has to be across the board. We have to make sure that individuals are being held accountable for what they are doing. So we are going to make sure that we are praying not just for George Floyd's family, but for all of the individuals, families who have lost family members in such a way, because this is all, I'm sure, like an open sore for them. This like pulls it right back open for them, because I believe that they probably are experiencing this all over again. And so we must pray for them and pray that our country and our world come to the agreement of change, for the better. We know that we cannot change people's hearts. We cannot change people's minds, but we can make sure that there's an accountability. If some people are just, this is not something that they just got overnight. They have had these preconceived ideas their entire life. They've been taught these preconceived ideas. I've ran into children that were racist. Okay. It's because their parents or grandparents or whoever have been teaching them for years this type of attitude, this type of behavior, this type of mentality. So we must make sure that we are teaching our children to not be that way, to not judge others based upon their appearance, based upon the color of their skin or the neighborhoods that they live in or their culture. We must make sure that we're being the trailblazers, that we're making the changes, and we are holding people accountable. we are making sure that we're going to hold individuals accountable that perform these heinous activities, heinous crimes that we all can visually see and witness. And then if you are there, and that's your co-worker, come on, you have to speak up. You are guilty. And let me say this, it amazes me to know that an individual can be inside of a bank robbing a bank. If I'm in the car and I drive that getaway car, I am held accountable just as that person who did that. They're going to lock me up too. And they're going to charge me with the same crime as that person. So you can look and see someone committing a crime and tell me now all of a sudden that they're not going to be charged with the same thing as that individual who did it. Come on. We have to revamp our system. It's time to revamp. It's time to change our policies. It's time to change our procedures. It's time to try to make individuals be held accountable for what they did. And it's time. It's time. It is time. It is time. It is time. And I am looking forward to that change. I don't want to see individuals tear down what they have worked hard for in their communities. My heart breaks to see that, because in a lot of these communities where people have completely torn things apart, they no longer have grocery stores or places to get their prescriptions or anything like this. The reality of it is that history has proven itself before that those same communities will not get those resources again. It took them 30 years to get the major grocery stores, the major chain, local markets. Took you forever to get these things in the community. And so now to tear all of those things up, there were already abandoned, gas stations and abandoned, stores and open lots of properties that have been torn down because people refuse to rebuild. They refuse to rebuild. So that's our reality. That is our reality. Some communities are going to suffer from the looters, not the protesters. Hear me clearly. There's a difference. Not the protesters, but the looters, the individuals who even came in and was not part of that community, and they tore that community apart. That community is not necessarily going to come back from that. Some communities are going to be damaged for years to come, because we've seen it done before, where the major stores will not reinvest into that community. Major stores will not support that community anymore. And I've seen, just recently where I live, in the city that I'm from, the state that I'm from, just now seeing maybe a couple of years ago where major stores were just coming into those communities, and now those stores are ripped apart. So it's devastating to watch what has been going on in our society and our world, and for people who are not necessarily understanding where change actually happens. Change does not happen from individuals stealing. It does not happen from individuals hurting people inside of the stores that they own. We have a lot of, here where I'm from, a lot of black owned businesses where individuals were physically hurt, trying to protect their property, who property were damaged, and they don't know if they can come back from it. So that's difficult to watch. It's difficult to watch. So I want to bring hope to you today that that things will get better. They will get better. And I believe it's going to change for the better. I believe that, leadership is going to come forth. Better leadership will come forth, demanding change and making sure that it's done in the right way, which is, once again, reform. Hear that word, reform. You have to do that. Once we have done all this other steps, the step to make this change, we've cried and we've screamed and we've hollered, we made our voice known, we made it known that we will not tolerate this. We've made that known. But now we have to make sure that the change comes, because no one is going to change anything based upon us showing our rage. with tearing up and looting. But when I come to you and I tell you now, I demand that you change this, and I'm in a position now where I'm assuring that policies and procedures and reform is taking place. That's the magic. That's where the magic happens. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to those individuals who are already in positions of power and leadership to assure that these policies change and to hold individuals accountable. And those who are in charge now to deal with the individuals, all of them who watched, all of them who participated, all of them who turned their backs and allowed this crime, this murder to happen on their watch, to hold them accountable. Listen, normally I come on here and I share some tips and tools with you to assist you to become a better you, but today I could not just do that without addressing the huge elephant in the room, and that is the murder of our brother George Floyd and so many others before him. This has been Michelle Cookall on Renewed Mind Revolution. It's a difficult podcast to share. It's a difficult podcast to have to do. But I will use this platform. I will use this platform because I want us to come together and I want us to change as a society, as a community. We are one community. Whether you live in a different state than me, we are still one community. Whether you like it or not, we're still one community. Okay? So we have to accept that. We have to accept that. And we allow little things to come in that get us off our point. And our point should be, we won't change. I'm not paying attention to anything else but dealing with what has been put before me from the very beginning. And that is, this can never happen again. That's what I want to come from this. That this should never, ever, 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 ever happen again. We should not forget that was the whole point of showing the resistance, is that we all together collectively as a community declare that this should never happen again. George Floyd, God bless your family. God bless you all. And thank you for tuning into Renewed Mind Revolution. God bless.